let's make a couple of display mannequins and some basic underwear for the 1860s. Good day everyone, my name is Caitlin. I'm a living historian who educates other living historians by teaching old-fashioned sewing skills and copying original garments. My husband works at a museum, and I've been working on a display for them, specifically on women and children's clothing. I have stuff already on display, however it's been there for about a year and it needs to come off. The only problem is what I have in terms of mannequins doesn't fit the two dresses that are going on display now. So we're going to make some. So I purchased Marna Davis's mannequin pattern per se, and so I have it printed out and I have worked on it some. One dress that's going on display is a teenager's dress. I don't know if this video goes before or after that one, but we're making underwear for it. And so she's of course smaller than the pattern, even though it is for original garments, so it's a fairly small pattern, but she's a teenager, so obviously she needed a little bit more. She's also much short-waisted than the adult pattern, and so I did adjust that. So I have new pattern pieces here. The second dress, members have seen, the rest of you have not, but it is going on display, and she's much larger than the pattern piece. So I have extended the pattern piece here only about 2.5 inches in the waist, but her bust, I think the pattern's bust was 30 inches, her bust is 41 inches. So I think we're going to do, I could not get that to work on the pattern piece itself. So I've extended a couple of inches. I think it's up to like 35, 36. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make some basically fabric breasts, and we're going to stick them in her corset. And that's going to be our solution to that. But this is the dress that's going on display. It's a work dress from the 1860s. So it's in rather, I guess, not fantastic condition. Shows a lot of its wear, a lot of its fading from use. Back of the sleeve especially is quite faded, mended, very thin compared to the rest of the fabric. It came with another dress, I bought both of them, but they're made exactly the same way. They're the exact same size. I don't know if they were worn by the same person, but considering they came together and they're literally constructed the exact same way, other than the other one is fancier and has more trim on it. That's the only difference. Leads me to believe they're probably worn by the same person. But yes, that is the dress we're making a mannequin for. So Marna's directions, I'm doing things a little bit different. I needed her pattern pieces. We are going to be using her pattern pieces. I just needed to make them fit the dresses that we're using. For the base and for that I'm using just regular unbleached cotton for the mannequin bodies. The mannequins that are already on display have an off-white cream fabric to them, I suppose, and I wanted to blend in with that, so that's why I chose this. And then Marna has like a wooden base, and then we go down another wooden base. We're doing something similar, but I wanted them to match what I already have on display. So let me pull one of my mannequins. This is a mannequin that is basically the same style and made the same way as the other mannequins I will have on display. And so we here see like a shiny but finished but light wood base. There's actually two. There's a larger circle and there's a smaller circle. Wooden stick. And then I don't think we'll be able to do anything like this, but maybe down the road we can. And then of course light cream body. So what I have done to replicate that is I've gone to Hobby Lobby, got some plaques, 9-inch plaque. I think this is a 6-inch plaque, and I'm going to glue them on top of each other. So I get my two circles. We're going to drill a hole down there and use a 7/8" dowel rod right in there. So this is 36 inches long, which is pretty good in length. The teenager is actually taller than the adult woman in this particular situation. So I'm hoping that these dowel rods are long enough for the teenager. I think they are. This will be about 2 inches. Her skirts are 36 inches long. The thing is, teenagers, their dresses don't go to the floor. But this is 2 inches. This is how long the skirts are exactly. So this will already put it 2 inches off the floor, but the pattern has a good bit of a hip as well. So I think I can adjust this length there and then cut off a little bit of the dowel for the adult woman because she's a little bit shorter. Actually, her skirt's like 1.5 inches longer than the teenagers, but her dress would have been worn longer than the teenagers. So it kind of evens out and makes her a little bit shorter. But yeah, so that is the plan. I have some basic stain that's going to make it a little bit darker. Should be about the same color as this. That's the goal. And then we're going to seal it with polyurethane just to make sure that there's no off-gassing that's going to damage any originals. But again, I do want them to match the ones I already have on display. So, and we'll continue using. But yeah, that is the current plan. So I think we're going to go ahead and cut out the pieces, sew them together, and then we're going to work on the wood. I think Rhett is going to take it to work to put the thing together, and then I will assemble it later. So we'll do bits and pieces in this video, mostly put this thing together, and then I need basic underwear to display with this. They don't need full underwear. They don't need, like, drawers are, the teenager is getting full underwear, but this work dress and another dress is on display don't look right with how they're being displayed currently. They need something to make them look like their period selves. So I think what we're going to do is like basic underwear. They don't need chemises, they're not working. This is essentially their chemise. Drawers are not going to be seen under there. We're going to omit the drawers. They're going to be in a case, so no one's going to see what's underneath them. They both need some sort of corset to lift and support the bust, put it in the right shape, shape the torso, all of that. And then one of them is going to get a crinoline because I want to show that working women did occasionally wear crinolines as well. And so I think this one's probably going to get the crinoline, not the homespun one. So we're going to make a very small crinoline. And then the other one that doesn't get a crinoline, and then it probably needs a petticoat over top. The other one needs a couple of petticoats to flip out the skirt to give it a proper shape. So we're basically going to be rating my wardrobe for what we can't make, but make what we can't find. So it's going to be kind of a hodgepodge video, but it should be fun. We're basically making display pieces for original dresses. So a little bit different than what we usually do, but it still kind of goes into the whole working with originals, studying them, putting them on display is part of that for me. So that's what we're doing today. Okay, these are my fixed pieces to fit the teenager. And all I really did was subtract at the waist. I had to add a little bit for her bust because her bust is actually, I did subtract a little bit for her bust. It was like only an inch smaller than the mannequin bust. So I did subtract an inch there. And I had to subtract quite a few inches for the waist. And I also again made her shorter waisted. Now for the, I guess, breast of the other one, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I saw a picture online and I was like, oh, that looks like that would work. So that's what we're doing. We're going to take that and put a fair bit bigger one as well. So the diameter of this one is 3 3/4 inches. That's a circumference of about 11 3/4 inches. 11 3/4. That one's 5 inches. That's 15.75 basically. So it's at 11. So that's 4 inches difference. So I need to take out a chunk essentially. So let's try 3 inches at first. And cut it to the middle. And so a little bit we're going to sew this. So it's a pointy. We're going to sew that together and then stitch that on top, and it's going to create a little pointy breast shape essentially. And I can stuff it. That's the goal. I did 3 inches because I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that would be the 4 inches that it told me that I need to do. Actually, I probably should do 3 1/2 because then I can do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. No idea if that'll work, but we'll find out. Sewing it together should be pretty simple, just because no finishing seams. It'll just be stitching it together and then stuffing it which is pretty easy to do. All right, so very quickly, we need to do something to this dress to make it ready for display. So there is a good bit of the gauging in the back that has come loose. Now normally I would not take a needle and thread to an original. However, for display, sometimes that has to happen. So I asked Marna if this would be a good candidate. She said if it was her, she probably would. She says go slowly, carefully, and she suggested different color thread. That way it can always be taken out later. My philosophy when working with originals, whenever possible, there are times where it is not possible, but whenever possible, anything that I do, even to fix an original, needs to be undoable without harming the original. Meaning, if I ever wanted to take this back to where my stitching was not in there, I would be able to do that, and the dress would look exactly like it had before I did anything to it. So when I wore my wedding veil, I stitched it to a comb, but I can unstitch it from that comb anytime I want, and the veil will be in perfect condition. That's my general philosophy for this type of thing. I don't go sewing on originals to make them fit somebody or to change anything super structural. Usually it is only for conservation situations. So this one's actually a pretty decent candidate for this type of thing. And I'm not going to tie off this thread at all. I'm just going to make a couple little side back stitches. And that way this dress will display better and I don't have to worry about more stitching being pulled out. Alright, I'm working on this crinoline. This does not have to be a perfect one. It's not going to be used for living history. It is just for display. So really all I need is for it to give a shape. It doesn't even have to be a perfect period correct shape because I can put period petticoats over top and make it look good. It just needs to fit into a case. So bottom rung is 95 inches, top rung I think is 51. And so we're going to figure out exactly where this is going to fit to give it a nice, I like it right here. And so I should probably mark where this is so I can do the same on, all around. I'm entirely going by looks and feel for this one. So let me see how far this rung is off from the waistband here. 6 inches exactly. Fantastic. That makes it a little bit easier. So this is definitely not a crinoline I would suggest anyone making for like living history use. That's not what this is. This is specifically crinoline use for display. It doesn't have to be made perfectly correctly. I just don't want any polyester near my originals. So I took it out of the original casing. Also the original, so I had fun doing this. So the fake polyester Amazon hoops that I'm using to make these, would you believe that the smallest rung closest to the top was still bigger than my bottom rung? That's mind-boggling to me. Who needs a crinoline that big? Who wears a crinoline that big? How do you function in something like that? Now I'm starting to understand, if that's what people think 1860s crinolines are like, now I'm understanding why people needed help to, weddings and quinceañeras and such, needing help going to the restroom to get around the dress. I'm understanding, because if that's what you're dealing with, if it's that big of a hoop, yeah, you're going to have issues with it. My goodness. basically I'm taking little 1-ish inch strips of the twill tape, and I'm making a casing. I just dropped my casing on the back. So pinning it in, and all of this is going to have to get stitched down somehow. I'm thinking by hand might be the easiest way. And then I put the hoop inside and pin it on the bottom. So wherever there is a pin, there will need to be a seam or a stitch of some kind. The reason this isn't going to work very practically outside of a case is because they move, which is obviously not ideal. And it makes it very hard to keep the hoop rungs. You're going to get hoop rungs migrating one way, and you're going to get a very misshapen crinoline. But since this is sitting literally in a case and never being touched, it's going to stay. And this is the fastest way to do this. I still have to make at least one corset. I guess if the homespun dress doesn't get a pair of stays, it won't be the end of the world, but it would sure look a whole lot better. So we're going to see what I can do about that. Maybe this crinoline, after I get everything pinned in, maybe this can be a Susan project while I work on the corset, or maybe I do this while she works on the corset. She's really good at corsets. And I did 4 rings or 4 rungs, so stick this underneath. Okay, now I gotta figure out where this one is going to go. So if I have it, I made it 30 inches long because the skirt is 37.5 inches. That's about 24 inches. So split that into 3, that's 8 inches. So 8 inches down is where I'm going to put this next rung. I guess I can go ahead and measure the next one. 8 inches down from there. And as far as museum work goes, this one isn't too bad. Museum work, sometimes I've learned you do some really weird stuff when working at museums sometimes. This is one of the less weird things that I've done, actually. I mean, last time I was at the museum doing exhibit stuff, I had to give a mannequin a double mastectomy and then give her new silicone ones, you know, in the right spot. Basically, if I can get the corset and crinoline for this cotton dress done today, I would love to get the corset for the other one done. If that doesn't happen, I can always do that one later. Also, I will have Susan's help tomorrow to stuff out that mannequin. So maybe she doesn't need one. Maybe we can stuff her out to make her look fine. I just think she needs one. Alright, so I created a corset pattern. And I just used my measurements. And I used the dress's measurements to come up with this pattern. Now, oops, we're going to add a little bit more to that. Which I felt was kind of backward, because technically what you're supposed to do is make the corset and then use your corseted body measurements to make the dress. So I had to go a little bit backwards, but that's what happens when you're working with original garments. Alright, so I'm going to add seam allowance to these, but not a ton. And this one I'm going to do a lightly boned corset. Me wanting to show some variety. But this mannequin ended up being bigger than I originally planned, so she needs some waist reduction. I think like the little teenager's corset we made a couple months ago, which for me was like 3 days ago. I'm going to put 1 bone per seam. Now this one's going to have more bones, but that's because she has more pieces. So I did a 4-piece corset for the young lady, and this one is a 6-piece corset. I also need some gussets for her bust line. What did I cut her underbust as? That's a great question. What did I cut her underbust as? Alright, for the last little bit, we're just going to finish the corset real quick. Susan had arrived at the house. She came from Louisiana to help us put this display together, for which we are very thankful. But we were over in the sewing room chatting. She was finishing the crinoline for me, for which I am forever grateful, because that thing, yeah, I had to do another one after this for my personal display crinoline. And it was a lot of work, so I'm glad Susan was there to help. So anyway, I just sewed the pieces together on the corset. Made, again, one bony channel per seam, so it was very lightly boned. I ended up having some spiral steel boning back from, I guess, back when I was told it was okay for 19th century, which I since learned it is not okay for mid-19th century corsets. It wasn't invented yet. But because this is a display corset, it will never be used for living history, I just used it for this. And otherwise, I made it totally appropriate. Like, it has a front opening corset busk. I did grommets and everything. This is me putting on the binding, which I did by machine, and then Susan went and finished it for me. Again, very grateful, because I had so many projects. I was a little frazzled in this video, and that was because there was just so many things I had to do. Now, granted, I have known for about a year that in July 2026, I needed to have all these things put together for this display, and I waited until the last week before doing it, before putting the display together, to actually do any of the projects. So I had to make a complete set of underwear for the little girl. I had to make an entire outfit for a 3-year-old little boy to display an original pinafore. I had to make both of these mannequins. I had to put together another baby's dress, the underwear for this, all the things. So we're actually going to do another video on putting the exhibit together. So I'm not going to show you too much of that, but I will show you a little bit. I ended up not making a corset for the homespun dress because we just used my 1870s one, because I wasn't able to get both of them done. So we might come back at a later time. We may actually make her an actual corset. That way she gets her own and I can have my 1870s one back. But it'll work out for right now. We'll just have to take it apart, and I'll just have to take off my 1870s corset whenever I need it, I suppose. Or I can make myself another 1870s corset. That is also an option. But I gathered some petticoats for the homespun dress that are mine. I also gathered a petticoat to put on top of the crinoline for the other dress. So I'll give you a little bit of footage of putting that together, and then that will round us out. So this is the homespun dress. This is on loan from the United Daughters of the Confederacy, the Texas division. The little homespun outfit in the back is also theirs as well. It's a little boy's suit. This thing looked terrible when I stuffed it out the first time. Like, it's looked bad for a while now, and every time I go past it, it's bad. It looks so bad, and I could not get it to look right, and I couldn't figure out why, because I had it stuffed to the right measurements. It just looked terrible. And so just randomly I was thinking, you know what, I bet putting a corset on would probably help her situation. What do you know, it solved almost every single issue almost instantaneously to put that corset on. Which is why underwear is important, y'all. Underwear is very important, even for working women. So yeah, the only other thing that could be fixed on this is that I think she was a little bit of a hunchback, only because of the way that bodice sits, but the mannequin isn't ours, so I can't carve out the back to make it fit her better. So it's a little off still, but it's not nearly as bad as it was. And then this is the finished mannequin that we never went back to, I guess. I never got footage of the end of that. It was a little bit of a struggle to get how I had it planned out working. The mannequin was a little bit wonky. We had to get some modeling clay to get it in there. I could have sworn I got footage of attempting to put them on. I know I did. Maybe I just lost it somewhere. That's entirely possible, and I'll probably find it down the road. Maybe it'll just be in the next video if I find it. Anyway, so yeah, that's the mannequin that we made. There are the little breasts that we made. I like this a lot because in different time periods, the breasts sit in different areas. So this way I can move them up and down based on how I need it to sit for a particular garment. So I like that a lot. I've made a couple of them myself now for my own personal collection as I'm starting to photograph it a little bit better. And then there's the corset we made and the crinoline. And then one of my petticoats went over top that eventually I'm going to have to replace because I don't have very many petticoats left. The mannequins have them all, apparently. So I've dressed out like 5 mannequins, I think, and I mean, it's impressive I have that much underwear, and I probably don't need that much, but we're getting to the point where I'm running a little bit low myself here. You can kind of see she's a little bit wobbly. This is before we fixed her, but it got more wobbly later, and then we had to go figure out what we're going to do. Susan suggested modeling clay that dried in like 24 hours, and that's what we ended up going with, and it worked really well. And then unfortunately I couldn't find the video at this very moment or of us putting together the teenage mannequin, which will be its own separate video because we're going to do it getting dressed as a teenager in 1860s video. We can see her in the background between some of the other stuff we put into the case. So yeah, she worked out really well. She was less wonky than the other mannequin. I don't know what it was. I made them the exact same way. This was a different day that we finished this case off. I know I had the footage somewhere. It's just it probably looks like something else, and I don't have time to sift through everything at this very moment. So this video is supposed to go out today as I'm filming this, like in a couple hours. So we're just going to have to let that one go. We will see that footage. I will find it, and it'll either be in next month's video, or it will be, again, in the getting dressed as a teenager video, which I think is in like 2 weeks or something like that. So yeah, that should be good. You'll be able to see that hopefully pretty soon. I did want to show you these cute little child boots from the 1860s. Aren't they adorable? Anyway, so yeah, that is about it for today. I know it was a little bit of a chaotic video, but it was, I had a lot of fun. I like doing this sort of thing. I know I get stressed out doing it, but the stressed out part was entirely my own doing because I decided to wait till the last minute. So that ought to be a lesson to me to not wait to the very last second. It probably won't be, and I will likely do it again, but it should be a lesson to me. So yeah, that was this week's video. You can kind of see the homespun dress in the background as well, and then behind the case that we're working on is where the other dress is. So we worked a little bit on 3 cases today, and we're going to see them all get put together in the whole, well, at least part of the exhibit put together next month. So be on the lookout for that. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.